Research on disability of dyslexia. I do learning disability. What are the basic facts about this disability? I have, I guess, a definition from the dictionary, which is any of various reading disorders associated with impairment of the ability to interpret spatial relationships or to integrate auditory and visual information. So, with that said, basically, people who have dyslexia have reading or, I guess, disability or delays, I guess. And because people who have dyslexia do end up being able to read, it just takes them a much longer time. With that associated is there's different types of dyslexia within actual being diagnosed with dyslexia. But someone who is dyslexic, they would be just considered have dyslexia, and not necessarily need be called one or the other type. It's just under like an umbrella of dyslexia. So, and someone who has dyslexia can have more than one of these, I guess, associated with them. And I have dyslexia, and I have more than one associated to me, or the way I learn, I guess. And so the certain types is phonological dyslexia, surface dyslexia, which is basically the same as visual dyslexia, rapid naming defect, which is, I guess, not just necessarily dyslexia, but it pertains to being able to read something really fast or name something really fast. Your body is not able to process that. Double defect dyslexia, which goes into having one or more of these certain things. So phonological dyslexia is what people assume when they're thinking of dyslexia, which deals with the sounds and understanding of the sounds and letters. Surface dyslexia, which is referring, as I said, visual dyslexia, is how people see words and remember those words. I associate with, like, they say, like, sight words. So when we know, like, the word the, other kids might know it, but people who have dyslexia, it's really hard, even though they see it and can see it and hear it and stuff like that. It doesn't process in their brain as much. So, excuse me. So after that, what parts of the body does the body or mind does this disability affect? It affects your brain and your cognitive and how you process sounds and letters, how you recognize the sounds and letters, which I guess when you're reading is very important, and that's why it causes delays in reading. So how does this disability affect a person? This disability affects a person's ability to read, see words, pronounce words, their ability to process the sounds of letters effectively. Disability is cognitive disability and might also see in delays in cognitive development. Excuse me. What are some specific challenges a person with this disability may need? Some specific challenges a person with this disability may need to overcome. So, because it encompasses, I guess, reading essentially, you need to overcome the whole disability and the different parts that associate with reading. So, with a disability, there's a lot of some must overcome. The disability is lifelong. There's no actual cure. Though, like for me, I guess I have really good coping skills, or I've learned very good techniques. As you're going through school, or a child goes through school, they get, evaluated and get evaluated multiple times throughout the year. Throughout the time of their schooling, they get taught techniques, they get special education. For me, I had an IEP. So with all of that, by the time I went to, high school, I was reevaluated and to see what level I was or how well I progressed, and I got, I guess they say, decoded. So I no longer had an IEP when I went into, my freshman year of high school. I did have like an academic plan so that, for whatever instance I needed the extra help, it was there. But I was no longer needed, I guess, special education. I was able to fully be in the classroom, be able to participate and, as, I guess, normal functioning, teenager. So with that said, so with this disability, each person with dyslexia needs their own plan. They have their own, I guess, situations. They have their own way of handling the situation. So most schools typically, do IEPs, a 504 plan, or they do some type of plan for a child to assist better in their needs. So the next question is, what types of support might someone with a disability need? People who have this disability usually have, intervention for reading and some then need the IP, some need the 504 plans, basically for them to process the information that is being read to them or that they hear and that they see. So as dyslexia encompasses all of that in reading. What is one thing you never knew about dyslexia or this disability, I guess, that you learned from doing this research? So for me, having it, living it, having my brother, have dyslexia as well, I didn't know if I was going to be surprised about something, but I actually was. So something I learned about disability is that they had nothing to do with numbers, yet most people believe it because I know most people are like, I'm dyslexic in numbers. And I'm like, oh yeah, me too. And I guess I'm not. And like my mother told me I'm not. It's a different thing. So it's dysgraphia, if I'm saying that right, which is a disorder which primarily expresses itself through difficulties with writing or typing, in some cases through difficulties associated with eye-hand-eye coordination, in direction and sequence-oriented processing, such as tying knots or carrying out repetitive tasks. For me, I guess my mom said in my IP, I had, ways that teachers were supposed to talk to me or tell me directions so that wasn't, I guess, discombobulated in my brain when given orders or directions to do something. I had difficulty, I guess, writing essentially and had to be taught how to write, and the way that I wrote, would sound funny and stuff like that. And that was all due to my dyslexia. Something else that I learned is that there's a different learning disorder usually are associated with dyslexia, which is some are ADHD, auditory process disorder, and developmental coordination disorder. With learning that there's no wonder that people who have this disability shouldn't necessarily have the same plan, that we all learn differently, so each plan of ours should act as that. So when we have auditory processing disorder and dyslexia, I think it becomes more difficult, and that we need to, as teachers, see those differences. So what new questions do you have about the disability and that you would like to explore more in depth? So the one question that I guess I sodomized out of this was, how can teachers effectively see the signs of dyslexia if there is so many forms? So, I mean, even though there's not actual diagnosis of different forms of dyslexia, but there's different types, how do you distinguish one from the other? And how do we as teachers effectively teach all those different types? And I know that they do have, people who have, special needs teachers and stuff like that do, are able to dissect that. But I guess me in a classroom with many other students, how do I teach them their way that they're learning through all the techniques that I do learn in school? Am I able to adapt my techniques of teaching reading maybe to better catch someone? Or do I adapt the way I see kids individually and differently, and then teach my skills or teach them skills to learn how to read that way? So that was it about dyslexia. Hopefully you learned something, and I did put down the actual document that I wrote and typed up, so that if you want to follow along with what I'm saying. All right.